All right, hi everyone. So we're going to be talking about the nitrogen cycle during this video. Now, nitrogen is a very important part of all living things. We need nitrogen, humans need nitrogen, animals need nitrogen, plants need nitrogen. One way we use nitrogen is in our amino acids. When we're making proteins, amino acids, what they're made up of, they have a component of nitrogen, and we need that. We need nitrogen in order to make those proteins, to make our amino acids. So we're going to talk about this nitrogen cycle, and this one's really interesting, but it can get a little bit confusing. Now, in the atmosphere, there's nitrogen. It's in the form of a gas called N2. Now, nitrogen gas is not usable for humans. And what's actually interesting is about the atmosphere is not just oxygen. It's actually 78% nitrogen and only about 21% oxygen. But we need this nitrogen. We can't breathe it in because that nitrogen gas is not usable. So what we need to do is we need to fix the nitrogen into something that's going to be usable for plants and animals and humans. And so this cycle is going to go over how that happens. So nitrogen starts out in the atmosphere as N2 gas. And you have these two spots right here. We're going to first start with nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Now, you're going to find that on the roots of plants. These plants are called legumes. This is like bean plants, soybeans, chickpeas, things like that. And then also there's nitrogen-fixing bacteria in soil. So nitrogen from the atmosphere, the nitrogen gas, will go to either here or here, whatever is available, and that's the first step. The first step gets fixed into ammonium, which is NH4+. All right, so right now we're at that point. And so we no longer have nitrogen gas, we have ammonium. And now we have to go through the nitrification process. So what happens is you have nitrifying bacteria. This is different from nitrogen fixing. It's nitrifying bacteria. We'll take the ammonium and switch it into nitrites, all right, NO2 minus. And again, you have nitrifying bacteria, then you're going to take it one step further into nitrates. And that is what's usable, all right? So you go from nitrogen gas, N2, to the nitrogen fixing bacteria, which turns it into ammonium. All right, so we're just going around in a circle here in our cycle. The ammonium gets fixed through nitrifying bacteria and it gets turned into nitrites. And then it gets further turned into nitrates. And that is what's usable for plants. Okay, so plants will then take in those nitrates and use them to make proteins and to grow. Now, this animal here is eating that plant. That's how they're going to get the nitrogen. When we eat animals and when we eat plants, that's how we get our nitrogen, all right? Because we can't get it from breathing it out of the air. It has to be fixed and turned into nitrates, and then plants will take it up, and then we can get it from them, all right? Now, let's say all the nitrates in the soil at that time, as much as the plant needs, gets taken in, and then there's some leftovers. So what happens is you have denitrifying bacteria. So it's a different type of bacteria than these guys down here. It's denitrifying bacteria will turn those nitrates back into N2 gas. So then they'll get kicked back out into the atmosphere. They'll leave the soil, go back to the atmosphere, and the cycle can start all over again, all right, whenever it's needed. Now, another way to get ammonium back into the cycle is through breaking down dead organisms. So these plants and animals, when they die, decomposers will break them down into ammonium, and then they can just jump right back into that cycle to be turned into nitrates. So everything is a cycle in this, all right? So it starts out in the atmosphere, it gets fixed by the bacteria, turns into ammonium, and then nitrifying bacteria will turn it into nitrites and then nitrates. And nitrates that is usable nitrogen for plants to take in. Plants get their nitrogen, animals eat the plants, they get nitrogen, other animals will eat this animal, and so on until everything in the food web or food chain gets nitrogen, all right? And remember, there's that other step for denitrifying bacteria. If there's leftover nitrates, that can turn it back into that nitrogen gas and kick it back out into the atmosphere, all right? So that was just a quick overview of the nitrogen cycle.